Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship IV in Barcelona, Spain. Marshall Cycliffe with Paul Zhiyang. Paul, we're into the semifinals, stepping our way ever closer to that trophy. And right now we've got two players lined up. We just got to hear a lot on the live feed here about how the matchup goes. Let's take a look at the head-to-head and see how they look. It is Zhiyang Zhang in 8th seed coming in his 12th Mythic Championship, I believe. And of course, this is his first top finish. Same thing for his opponent, Thoralf Severin from Germany. Similar trajectory here for these players. You know, you can see they've both played in the just over 10 Mythic Championships or so. And Thoralf, he's going big or going home. He brought Tron to the table.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of turning back the clock a little bit, a lot of people choosing to play Karn the Great Creator as the new addition to the mono green Tron deck, but instead, Thoralf opting to play classic Tron with basically a deck that you could have built 2 years ago?
Yes.
You know, year and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah, there's a Blast Zone in there or something. Like that's the big, you know, the singleton copy of Blast Zone is the difference. It's nothing.
Yeah, and part of the reason why Thoralf chose to go with the traditional build of this Tron deck is because this opened up sideboard slots for him. And he can now choose to play 4 copies of Leyline of the Void to combat, of course, public enemy #1 coming into this event, which was, of course, the Hogak deck.
Now, interestingly here, in the quarterfinal match that Thoralf Severin played against David Mines, his lands were getting destroyed left and right. There was Assassin's Trophies, and after sideboards, we saw Fulminator Mages and the like. He did say, though, coming into this match, that is not what this version of Tron is trying to do. So he's not worried about his lands getting destroyed, particularly in these first 2 games. All he wants to do is get Tron online. That's what his focus is.
Right, and I liked, you know, David Mines' decision to play multiple Assassin's Trophies in the format because Abrupt Decay is a lot worse. It doesn't kill Hogak. It doesn't kill those big creatures. So instead, you know, replacing that with Assassin's Trophy not only is great against Hogak, but also a very effective tool against the Tron deck.
So only one viable choice here for the Inquisition of Kozilek, and it looks like Thoralf is on a mulligan to 5. He's going to play his land for the turn and pass. He is down to really nothing here. He's just got a Wormcoil Engine and a forest in his hand, but with Expedition Map on the battlefield, that means he is 2/3 of the way to Tron.
Yeah, curious to see if he's going to wait.
Does he crack
on
it?
the Expedition
No,
Map, right? To see which second piece of the Tron that he draws to make sure that he can hit Tron. Because if you search for the mine now and you draw an additional mine, that feels horrible.
Yep.
So it looks like he's trying to play it a little bit slower here, waiting to see if he does draw that second Tron piece before cracking the Expedition Map.
In the meantime, Zhang, with a good start, Inquisition right into Bob, as we were talking about earlier. That is a Dark Confidant, and he even hit a land off of it, so just the perfects.
Right, and Thoralf mulligan down to 5 here, and he's got a Liliana of the Veil too, which, of course, definitely punishes mulligans.
Wow, what a curve out here for Zhang. This is exactly how Jun draws it up. If he has the land into Bloodbraid Elf next turn, which, by the way, he does, it's just perfect. Inquisition into Dark Confidant, into Liliana, into BBE.
Yeah, one of the big reasons why Jund is so unfavored, especially in the pre-sideboarded games, is because it plays a bunch of removal that's kind of dead in the matchup. But Zhang looks like only drew the good half of his deck right now with Inquisition, Dark Confidant into Liliana.
And at some point, Thoralf is going to be pressured enough here that he's just going to have to crack that map and hope to draw the other piece. That might not be right now.
Right.
And at least he has Relic of Progenitus rolling. He says, I want to activate it. You have to choose 1 card to exile from your yard.
Yeah, exiling the Inquisition because he might want Verdant Catacombs for Ren and 6, and also creatures in graveyard for Scavenging Ooze. And
he's going to go ahead and sacrifice the Relic of Progenitus now because he needs to get the ball rolling. And there it is. It's an Urza's Mine. And you know what he drew for the turn? Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
Right, but there is a Liliana on board,
That's
so
right.
that Ugin will not be able to be cast. However, this puts Thoralf in a situation where he can top deck Wormcoil Engine, Karn, Ugin, Oblivion Stone.
Yeah. Okay, so bye-bye Ugin. Eugene, short-lived.
Eugene is not long for this world, but
yeah, and like we mentioned before here, Paul, this is Bloodbraid Elf is going to hit the battlefield here.
Right, but Zhang does not have a way to disrupt the mana base of the Tron deck in the pre-sideboarded matches in game ones. So he's just going to have to try to clock Thoralf, put some pressure on him. He's got that Bloodbraid Elf in hand.
Let's do it.
So that's going to be attacking in for 5, and Thoralf just needs to find one of his many heavy hitters.
Yeah, and let's not forget he has a lot of what we call redraws, cards that will draw him a card, or even better than that, he could find a card like Ancient Stirrings, which will let him have potentially a selection of huge cards to cast with all of his mana.
Right. Basically, the only really poor draw are just lands, or ways to find lands. But Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star, Oblivion Stone, Ugin, Ulamog, Walking Ballista, Wormcoil Engine, and all the other ways to cycle. There's just so many cards that he can find here that are going to be extremely high impact.
Damage is going to start flowing here, though. Bloodbraid Elf hits a Lightning Bolt off of the Cascade trigger, so there's 3 more damage this turn in addition to the 5 from the creatures on the ground. Thoralf has to sacrifice his Expedition map, go get himself a tower, and slap the top of that library, hoping to find something great. He had in his hand a Wormcoil Engine. That got taken away by Liliana. Then he drew Eugene. That's Ugin the Spirit Dragon. That got taken away by Liliana. He needs one more.
Yeah. Oblivion Stone, Ugin. Ugin would be, of course, fantastic here.
Best case.
Ulamog would actually not be great because he wouldn't be able to cast it. He would actually be 1 mana short. He'd have 9 mana, so Ulamog would not do it. But anything big.
Sanctum of Ugin. That's not what he wants. He's not even going to get a chance to use that either because he needs to play the tower so that he can keep his outs live. Can he survive the turn is now a legit question because another Bloodbraid Elf's going to go on the stack. If it is a Lightning Bolt, he will be dead.
Right, absolutely.
Now, there's no Lightning Bolt in hand for Zhang, though. It would have to come off of the Cascade, so not particularly likely.
Zhang has a really nice card in hand, too. He's got a Raging Ravine, which allows him to play around cards like Oblivion Stone, All Is Dust, and...
and it was Lightning Bolt
my goodness, okay,
and that's going to be the game right now. Zhiyang Zhang, calm, cool, collected, and I got to say, he junded him out.
Yep. Classic Jundam out. I mean, Thoralf had to mulligan down to 5 to find the Tron pieces and had the ideal start. I mean, Thoralf was able to find Tron, but couldn't find the payoff card in time. And Zhang needed to find 2 bolts. I mean, Thoralf maybe could have had that 1 additional turn, but that Raging Ravine also was kind of a backup plan. If Thoralf found a way to sweep the board, he still could have gotten for the final points of damage with the Ravine.
That really did limit the number of outs pretty significantly there because the Oblivion Stones and the Ugins were no longer good enough.
Right.
And Thoralf didn't even know about that either. That was a little surprise that Zhang kept in his hand, but ended up not needing it. He hit those 2 bolts, which ended up taking a full turn off the clock. Game number 1 goes to Zhiyang Zhang. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be right back into semifinal number 1 here from Barcelona. Don't go anywhere.
Hey everybody, I've got Yvonne Flock here and we're going to crack this pack of Modern Horizons. Here you go. Do the honors, sir. Open it up. Do you like this format, Yvonne?
Yes, I like it. It's a lot of fun, but I'm not winning as much as I want to.
Oh, why not? What's going wrong?
No, I'm probably making some mistakes, so I'm still learning, but I have good teammates for that, so let's see if I can find the right pick in this pack.
All right, so let's lay it out. We've got Reckless Charge, a Spore Frog, Reign of Revelation, Savage Swipe. That's a card a lot of people like here.
It's very efficient.
Very efficient. Yeah, that's a perfect Magic player way to put it. Carrion Feeder, Wing Shards, and Bizarre Trade Mage, which is a pretty good rate for a 3/4 flyer. What do you like here?
I think actually I like the Savage Swipe. We talked about it. Card is very, very efficient. It's 1 mana removal plus it deals some damage to your opponent usually. So that's card I like the most. And if there other considerations, I think are Bogard and Dragonheart and Bazaar Trade Mage, because it's also like very big body flying.
So I've got to ask you though, I know this is excellent removal at 1 mana, but aren't you tempted at all by this 3/4 flyer for 2 or for 3?
Oh, I definitely am, but it's also card disadvantage sometimes, so it's a little bit risky, and it's not belonging to every blue deck too.
Do you have a preference as far as color goes in Modern Horizons draft?
Oh yeah, I do. I like blue-black and black-red. Those are my most favorite. And then I like green-blue, snow usually, but that's kind of risky because if it doesn't come together, it's sometimes very, very bad. Other decks, when they don't come together, they are still kind of okay. blue-green snow might be very bad.
So Bogarden Dragonheart, for example, is a card that you would love to have in like a red-black aggressive
Yes,
deck.
black-red sacrifice team, goblins maybe. That's great in that.
All right, well, we're looking for bears now. We've got our Savage Swipe. Let's find our tutus. Yvonne Flock, everybody.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Barcelona, Spain. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Chion bringing you coverage of the first semifinal match here on Top 8 Sunday at Mythic Championship IV. And we are just about ready for game number 2. I'll remind you, we're playing best 3 out of 5, not your standard best 2 out of 3. And on top of that, we won't be sideboarding until the 3rd game. Thoralf Severin is a mulligan master. You mentioned it when we were coming in, that the Tron deck has really taken full advantage of the London mulligan rule change, and but it does end up mulliganing often as a result.
And Zhang must be thrilled to be able to take one of the pre-sideboarded games here, because he's got a lot of additional tools after he gets to sideboard out those fatal pushes and such, but didn't draw any of those. Was still able to draw those lightning bolts. They were still relevant, as it did cut down the clock and allowed Zhang to win before Thoralf had the opportunity to maybe stabilize and top deck one of his big cards. But this Tron deck has proven time and time again, you don't need 7 to win. You just need those 3 lands in play and 1 card. Oftentimes a single Karn or a single Ugin is all it takes to be able to win the game. And this hand looks really strong here. Is that natural Tron?
Oh, he's sending back a map,
No, I
Paul.
think he's putting 2 maps on the bottom.
Yeah, he doesn't need it. Easy mode.
Oh, man.
All right, we can get them underway.
Look, he's got that little smirk
He
here,
does.
too.
He has the Tron smirk.
This
it's
is
like,
good.
dude, you have turn 3 Tron, don't
And
you?
you know, they
you
always
don't
have
know
the hand
that.
disruption spell.
Yeah.
What you got? Oh,
Here's
by the way.
bad news. And also, you whiffed.
He's looking at the lands too. He's like, wait a second. Let me read these. Wait.
Yeah,
Power plant,
tower,
mine,
mine.
tower.
Yeah.
That's Tron.
The reason is because they're in German.
Right.
Erz's Kraftwerk, it says.
Well, I have to adjust this advantage bar here with the natural Tron.
So you're going to give a slight advantage to the player with turn 3, 7 mana?
with turn 3 Tron.
Also,
can't
by the
interact.
way, Inquisition just whiffed.
Right. So got a card back from the double mulligan.
Not the worst. There's a Renin 6. But I got to tell you, as good as Renin 6 has been, no second land here for Zhang. This has gone horrendously in game 2.
Time to cycle.
See if he can find something good. Well, no, kind of.
All right, so he has
Probably green mana.
green and a colorless floating. He's going
Yep.
to use the colorless to cast the chromatic sphere. And he currently has 1 green mana floating.
Zhang really banking on finding a fetch land with that keep, and he couldn't do it. Nothing, though, from Thoralf Severin just yet. I was going to say it, though. Yeah, go upstairs. Why not? The Renin 6, as good as it's been, it is incremental, right? When you have haymakers coming at you, Thoughtseize
look at
misses again. What is going on
Hit me with
here?
all your hand disruption.
Now he
Is this
draws
just Ulamog time, maybe?
Karn or something, right? No, he's just going to pass the turn back.
Yeah, but no pressure
And
from
still
Zhang,
no
no
lands.
lands. I mean, it's just a matter of time, unless Thoralf somehow whiffs for 7 straight turns, which is extremely unlikely.
Yeah, I like Thoralf Severin's chances here.
And my guess is that Zhang also mulliganed and kept the hand with that disruption spell with the Inquisition, and was just hoping that he could get Thoralf to keep a sketchy hand.
This is getting interesting. Tarmogoyf on the battlefield after the land, and Thoralf is still literally on all lands in hand. Now, how many turns did you give him? 7 if he whiffed? It's been 3.
Right. So if you're Thoralf, you can probably take one hit from the Tarmogoyf just to see what Zhang chooses to do. He does have a Blast Zone sitting on 2. So this Tarmogoyf, if he wants, he can just choose to get rid of it. But he can certainly afford to take chunks of 3.
Wow.
But now if Thoralf if Zhang plays out another 2-mana card, he's gonna
play Renin 6 and he can't even get a land back?
The thing is, he probably just has too many 2-drops in hand and kind of needs to force the issue here with the Blast Zone.
Okay. Well, at least it was a spell here for Thoralf Severin, and he can turn it into a card. So away goes the Graveyards, and that's great news for the Tarmogoyf. And there's some business.
All right,
Ancient
here we go.
Stirrings. 1, 2, 3, and there's a Karn liver
Oh,
and an
there's
Ugin.
Ugin.
The big hitters 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's got plenty of mana to cast whatever he wants here, Paul.
Yeah.
Go for Eugene.
Probably Ugin here. Ugin for 2, and that should probably lock it up.
He had to find something, right?
Yeah, of course. I see an Oblivion Stone, but I can't imagine he's going to go for that.
No.
I think the consideration here is either Karn or the Ugin.
Yeah, if he goes for Karn, he could consider attacking the mana base here. Ugin would wipe away both permanents, but when Thoralf looks at his board, he says, I actually can do that already.
Right.
You know, that isn't solving a problem he doesn't have an answer to. So, I don't know. It does feel devastating. If you go Karn, take out your land, remember, it exiles it, so Renin 6 can't get it back.
Yeah, he might go for the red source, but that leaves your Karn vulnerable to Lightning Bolt. So if he plays Karn, he might just actually just tick it up.
Does he have enough mana to do both? Can he Blast Zone and play Karn here?
He can.
Oh, yeah, he's got a tower left
right.
over, so that's the business then.
Right, the question is, does he want to just sack the Blast Zone here too so that the Karn doesn't take a point of damage off the Renin 6?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to do that. So yeah, I mean, if Zhang has a Lightning Bolt and draws a red source, I mean, he will be able to get that Karn. But nope.
He does have the Bolt.
Does have the Bolt. But this Karn is going to slowly take over the game, and the next turn, that's going to put it out of reach from Lightning Bolt. It's going to go up to 7, and yeah, that's game.
Yeah. Zhiyang Zhang says, I've seen enough. That stumble in the early, he had 3 1-drops in his hand plus Renin 6. He definitely had the chance to draw out of that, especially with a fetch land, but it was not to be. Thoralf Severin smashing. That thing went perfect. Everything lined up, too. I mean, he missed with Thoughtseize when Thoralf had like 3 or 4 cards in hand, and he missed with Inquisition of Kozilek early in the game, too.
Yep.
Let's take a look at the sideboards, because that, of course, was game number 2 ending, which means that the players will now have access to their sideboards. Thoralf Severin, he knew it was up. 4 copies of Leyline of the Void in his sideboard here to take care of the Hogak decks, though cards less good against Jund.
Yeah, and Thoralf really has not a whole lot of cards here for the Jund matchup, but, you know, all his cards are, I mean, his deck is basically pre-boarded for the matchup. All the cards in his main deck configuration is already very good here. You know, maybe he could consider shaving on a Ballista or 2, but, you know, everything in his main is just totally fine. So not a whole lot of cards he can consider. I mean, Dismember is an option if he wants to maybe, you know, deal with a potential pesky Dark Confidant or a Tarmogoyf. There's also Thragtusk. You know, if you expect Fulminator Mage to tax your mana a little bit, sometimes you can try to play some Fair Magic and run a Thragtusk out there. Very effective. You know, usually it's going to be big enough to trade with a Tarmogoyf and gain you some life. Even if they use a removal spell, you'll get some extra value on top of that. So, not a whole lot from Thoralf, but at the same time, not a whole lot for him to sideboard out.
Taking a look at Zhiyang Zhang's sideboard. Spell Bombs? No. Plague Engineers? Mm-mm. Fulminator Mage? Uh-huh. We like that. Leyline of the Void? No. Collective Brutality? Maybe. Grudge? Maybe. Oof? Yeah?
Oof, definitely, yeah.
For sure.
Stony Silence has been historically, you know, a very powerful sideboard option against Tron because it relies so heavily on cycling through its 1 mana, you know, sphere and star effects, Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star, Relic of Progenitus, and of course, most importantly, Expedition Map. So Collector Roof shuts off all of those things, so slam dunk card that you should expect Zhang to bring in along with the Fulminator Mages, probably also bringing in the Ancient Grudge because, you know, this is only 5 cards that are really actively good in the matchup, you know, so, you know, probably definitely taking out the Fatal Pushes that he had in the main. And, you know, if you have something like an Abrupt Decay, you're easily just going to replace that with Ancient Grudge, which is strictly better in this matchup.
Yeah, Oof also takes care of Oblivion Stone.
Yes.
so it can hang around and do its thing.
And that is also a reason for Severin to bring in those dismembers because, you know, it answers some of your cheap creatures, but also Collector Roof is probably the most problematic creature that you need to answer to be able to unlock all of your artifacts.
One kind of cool play I saw this weekend. Yeah, so see Veil of Summer down there, Paul?
Yeah.
I saw Thoralf cast that in response to a Liliana of the Veil ultimate.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like your Liliana goes away.
Right. Yeah,
Not the worst.
Yeah, Veil of Summer is also an effective card. It's really good against hand disruption. If your opponent goes Inquisition or Thoughtseize, Veil of Summer is certainly a card that's just brutal, right? It counters it and draws you a card. So highly, highly impactful sideboard card. Very good against hand disruption and also decks with counter magic.
See players getting ready to fight here. And we're in our first semifinal match. This is Zhiyang Zhang versus Thoralf Severin. They're both split a game here. Zhang with the proper Jund treatment in game number 1, though I have to say we kind of got to see both ends of the spectrum here from Jund, although, you know, primarily it was the missed second land drop from Zhang for multiple turns that really set him back. Typically, I don't know, give me a guess here, Paul. How many mulligans on average do you think Thoralf Severin had over the course of the tournament, you know, on a per game basis?
Well, given that he top-8'd, probably less than the average Tron deck. You know, you have to have a combination of, you know, running pretty well and also playing very well to make it this far. But I think just in general, the average Tron deck, I mean, you probably mulligan at least once a match, if not twice.
Where an average deck would be something like half
something
a time
like that.
or something like that.
For example, I mean, one example of a deck that almost never wants to mulligan is the Jund deck, right? Because a lot of the cards are cheap, efficient, you know, answers and creatures.
Dependent. Yeah,
right.
you need every little tool that you can have.
Like the only reason for a Jund deck to ever mulligan is just not enough lands or too many lands, right? Whereas Thoralf needs a specific set of cards, or he just absolutely cannot keep his hands.
Looks a little better here for Zhang. See if he can get back on track after that game 1 thumping.
And yeah, as expected, we have Thoralf taking a mulligan here. As expected from the Tron deck, he just, you know, you just, even something that looks somewhat keyboard, that's one thing that I've learned when you play the Tron deck. If your hand is just looks fine, you're like, you have a nice mix of lands and spells, that's just not something that you should do, that you should keep. You know, if you have 2 forests, 1 Urza land, and a map, you just can't keep that. You know what I mean? The goal of the deck is to get Tron by turn 3 and turn 4, and if you just don't have those cards, you just cannot keep, and you just have to mulligan, because you just don't need a lot of resources to win with this deck. We briefly saw Zhang's hand. Looks like he did choose to keep the lightning bolts in just to try to finish off, put some pressure on Thoralf. He is, of course, the aggressor in this matchup.
All right, looks like he's got to keep on 6. And we should be all set for semifinal 1, game number 3 coming at you here from Barcelona. Let's get underway. There is a Lantern 1 here for Zhang. He's got the Raging Ravine. And critically, he has a second land this time, although I don't see a black source just yet.
Yeah.
There is actually one.
There's a Nurturing Peatland, I think.
He does have one. But he's going to want to play that here in case he draws a Liliana.
Yeah, but no hand disruption and no way to kill a turn 1 expedition map, I don't think.
Oh, that could be problematic. A slow draw against Tron, sure, they can get set up.
Yeah. Is he on the beatdown plan here?
With an 0-1, I guess.
Yeah. And did Thoralf find?
No. So the good news for Zhang is that Thoralf does not have a second Tron piece in hand to get Tron on turn 3. The bad news is that he does have the land, so he'll be able to work his way there. A little more on the bad news front is that there also is a Sylvan Scrying in hand here for Severin. So he has, what do you want to call it, virtual Tron. He has the pieces in sight.
Yeah, this is a turn 4 Tron, which is still going to be fine against a deck like Jund, which can't really kill you on turn 4. Zhang needs to play something here so that he can get some pressure going with the Thoralf, but not a whole lot here. Taking a look at his hand, we have a Maelstrom Pulse, no targets.
He did draw that Liliana, but doesn't have the second black mana anyway.
So we're going to just, get aggressive here. Lightning Bolt to the face, and that is a 1/2 Tarmogoyf getting in.
Sad.
Yeah.
Sad Goyf.
Got to do what you got to do.
Definitely, and that is the name of the game here. Next turn, he would love to find some mana because he could, if an untapped mana source, he could cast Bloodbraid Elf.
Wait, did he get the same Urza land?
Yes, he did. So let's not do that.
Yeah. We all knew what he was trying to
Would have
get,
been pretty aggressive. Thoralf just showing off.
He's just like, I know the other pieces are there. But the sacrificed expedition map does grow to Tarmogoyf, so now is a 2/3, a little bit bigger.
There's Tron piece number 2, and number 3 coming into hand here. Sylvan Scrying is going to get that tower.
Now the
and
Goyf
he
is
drew
a 3/4.
Karn Liberated for the turn as well. Wow, a land off the top here for Zhang could keep him in the game.
Right. He actually just has to draw land. He wants to get that Bloodbraid Elf into play and just put maximum pressure on Thoralf. Because if he has a Bloodbraid Elf in play along with that Tarmogoyf, the Karn is not quite as effective.
That's right. So let's see if he can hit an untapped land here. A black mana source would be fine.
Is he going to just bolt again?
Yeah, it looks like it.
All right.
Upstairs, he sees the writing on the wall. He knows how quickly he needs to get this game done. Unfortunately, Jund is not amazing at this, but if he hits a land, it can actually be pretty good. Untapped land.
Oh, that's a Black
That was a Black Cliffs, Paul. Just the most brutal possible. It was a black mana source. It was a land, and it enters the battlefield tapped.
We needed to be more specific. We needed to say untapped land.
We did. Oh, that is just rough here for Zhiyang Zhang. Now he's relegated to just play that land, attack in for 3. Instant sorcery artifact for the Tarmogoyf.
He could sack the peatland to get in for an additional point of damage. And if he does, the Blackleaf Cliffs also comes into play untapped. And then if he draws a 2-drop, he could play at this turn.
You're right. These are all the truth. Desperation truths, but truths. And by the way, there's Dismember from Severin to completely stall the assault here from Zhang. Things starting to look good for Thoralf. And his land go.
Yeah.
So now he gets to play Karn and keep him off of lands going forward.
Yeah. I'm actually not sure if he's going to go for Karn minus on the lands or if he's just going to tick it up.
Oh, that's interesting. It is much safer to tick it up, but it is much more impactful to go for the lands.
It really depends on if the Karn was the only threat in his hand. If he has multiple heavy hitters, you're okay with Karn taxing the mana and then just finding something and then just casting something else afterwards. And it looks like he found a Ugin here, so there's an even greater likelihood here that we see, for example, Karn minus maybe getting that Raging Ravine off the board.
Yeah, he also could be concerned about the black mana. That was the second black mana source from Zhang.
I guess if you just go for the Cliffs, that prevents Liliana, and he's far away from activating the Raging Ravine.
Exactly, so that's what he does. Now another opportunity here, though, for Zhang. Yeah, let's put it under Karn just in case we get to that point.
Land would still be solid here, right?
It would be good. It's a Raging Ravine off the top. We forgot to be specific again, Paul. You asked for a land and you got it.
Well, I mean, this is the price you pay. Raging Ravine, very powerful land, fixes your mana, but of course, when you need that untapped land for the Bloodbraid Elf.
You got to feel for Zhang at this point, though. He does have Maelstrom Pulse at least to deal with Karn, but this is not how you get back in the game, right? You know, Karn already did the damage, and now you had to use your whole entire turn. Land go. And there's another tower off the top, so plenty of mana available for Severin, though I believe he still only has the one actual threat with Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
Yeah, but you can just Ugin, tick it up twice, and then if he's afraid of getting burned out, I mean, it doesn't take very long. It only takes 2 pluses and then a minus, and then you get to gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Thoralf might be just running the numbers here just to see if it's possible for him to go fetch out a Sanctum of Ugin and also cast Ugin on the same turn, which would then allow him to kind of keep the action going by triggering the Sanctum of Ugin off casting the Ugin. But it looks like he doesn't have the mana, and he's just going to play Ugin plus have it go up to 9 and bolt Zhiyang Zhang. I mean,
it's a lot of loyalty, but there are cards that can take it out.
What was that?
That was a Fulminator Mage full art, unfortunately, way too late here for Zhang.
I mean, Zhang still has the chance. I think at this point he just shouldn't be going after the Ugin here. If he goes Bloodbraid Elf into Lightning Bolt, attack you,
okay.
I mean, you know, he's already used 2 of them.
You're convincing me.
Right, but, you know, here are some of the things that could happen. Maelstrom Pulse, of course, would be nice, too.
Another Bloodbraid. Land. Oh, Inquisition of Kozilek is going to take away Sylvan's Scrying, but that was not the type of card he wanted to see there. Not at all.
Yeah, curious to see what he does with the Bloodbraid Elf. I mean, again, there's also that Raging Ravine that's in play. There's 2 of them. Ugin actually has no way of interacting with them, so he can choose to get in for 4 points of unimpeded damage there as well if Thoralf can't find a creature.
I kind of like your line, Paul. It just feels like, okay, you can start attacking Ugin, but you cannot outpace it. It gains 2 loyalty every turn anyway.
Yeah, but Thoralf is very close to kind of getting to that emblem on the Ugin. So
to the ultimate, you mean?
Yeah, to the ultimate. So he might just choose to attack the Ugin down to 6 so that it's going to take an additional turn. But
he's going upstairs. Zhang says this is only one way to play, and that's aggressive. But you're right. Not next turn, but the turn after, Thoralf would be able to ultimate Ugin the Spirit Dragon, which would gain him 7 life as well. Though I think Zhang feels that if he is to win this game, we won't get to that point, even if that is unlikely.
Right. So what's going to happen here is Thoralf's going to sack the land, probably find Sanctum of Ugin because he has all the mana in the world. He's going to tick up Ugin to kill Bloodbraid Elf.
Oh, look at this.
Oh, there's a Blast Zone, right? Okay. And he's going to tick up the Ugin to kill the Bloodbraid Elf, and then the Ugin's going to be at 11. And then Zhang, if he draws a land, he absolutely cannot let Ugin's -10 happen.
Yeah.
So then he would have to activate Raging Ravine and attack the Ugin.
And here's Ancient Stirrings, and look at that, a Worm Coil engine found off of Ancient Stirrings, and really that's going to put the nails in the coffin here. There's just no way for Zhang to get these last 6 points of damage through a Worm Coil with only 1 draw step coming.
Yeah.
It was a Bloodbraid Elf, but even if he hit a bolt, it wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, that's not going to get it done.
No, so he's going to play it, and now cards like Maelstrom Pulse don't get the job done against the Worm Coil.
Yeah, Worm Coil Engine is just one of the most difficult cards to deal with coming from the Jund decks. You need exile removal, and the Jund deck simply doesn't play that. Back when Tron was more popular, people would play cards like Deglamer, just to kind of shuffle Worm Coil Engine back into the deck as a way to deal with it. But, you know, Tron is just not quite as popular enough for people to warrant kind of having that card in their sideboard.
So Thoralf Severin picks up game number 3. He's up 2-1 over the Jund deck in the hands of Zhiyang Zhang. And, I mean, that's how it's supposed to go, right? Like, the Tron deck is a real handful for this Jund deck.
Yeah, and on top of that, you know, Zhang just also kind of stumbled there, right? He did have some opportunities to just really put that pressure. Needed untapped land number 4, and if he did, he might have been able to have enough there, right? Because I mean, he got
it was close.
He got Thoralf down to 6, right? So, but you know, that Blackleaf Cliffs followed by the Raging Ravine, and I mean, those are just heartbreakers for him because you know he didn't have that ideal start where you go hand disruption into threat. He played a 0-1 Tarmogoyf, couldn't play the Bloodbraid Elf, and Thoralf that just gave Thoralf just enough time to stabilize with that Ugin and the Worm Coil.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So Thoralf Severin up 2-1, but we're not done yet in our first semifinal. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be right back with game number 4. Don't go anywhere.
I'm here with Alex Haim from the team from the comic book store, currently sat in exactly 8th place in the team series. Now talk us through what that already has meant for your team as we come to this Mythic Championship in Barcelona.
Well, we managed to sneak in there with my top 4 finish last Mythic Championship. If I'd come 8th place, actually, we wouldn't have gotten in there. So I was playing that match for my team to all get free flights to this tournament since we were already qualified, but free flight's not bad, especially Barcelona in the summer. And so it's already like, you know, over $1,000 benefit for everybody already for the team series. And we're hoping to snag one of those top 2 spots with a strong finish here and maybe even get way more out of it.
Now, talk us through who we've got on the team for this event. There's 6 of you working together. Who are we working at?
All right, so there's obviously me. There's fellow Pro Tour champion Wyatt Darby. There's Mattia Rizzi from Italy. There's there's Andrei Strasky, you know, Czech superstar.
Of course.
I was trying to think of a thing to say about everybody, but there's
There's a lot of talent on this team.
There's a lot of talent.
A ton of talent. And the formats, I suspect from looking at your t-shirt that you have some feelings about how the formats are looking for you. Enjoying Modern with this Modern Horizons update?
Yeah, no, it's fun. And I like the draft format. And Modern, I mean, Modern's always just do some powerful thing that you like to do, right? At this time, you know, it seems like a lot of people are maybe playing Hogak. And I'm just going to still combo them out with my 3 lands, you know?
I mean, when your 3 lands tap for 7 mana, all of a sudden, you know, it's not just the Hogak decks that are doing something unfair in this format. Now, admittedly, on 93 points, which is where you are currently at, I believe, you have got a little bit of work to do, but you had a top 8 at the last Mythic Championship. There's still everything to play for here as we get to Mythic Championship IV in Barcelona.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Barcelona, Spain. We're here for Mythic Championship IV. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Chion. And we're about halfway through the day here. Semifinal number 1. The other one has Alvaro Fernandez Torres from Spain playing Hardened Scales versus Sean Gifford from Canada on Eldrazi Tron. But that has to wait because right now we've got Thoralf Severin on the right-hand side of your screen from Germany playing Tron up 2-1 over Zhiyang Zhang from China on Jund. That's right, Thoralf, get a big swig of that because it's battle time. If he wins this game, you're looking at your first finalist here at Mythic Championship IV. That is a huge deal for either of these players.
It looks like we saw Zhang put a card on the bottom of his library. So it looks like a mulligan here. All right, 1 Tron piece, 2 Tron piece.
And 2 Tusks.
Okay, so no, he doesn't actually have Tron. He has a mine, a tower, a forest, but then a couple of redraw effects with that Chromatic Star and the Relic of Progenitus and the Thragtusks. That's a solid backup option, especially after sideboard when you expect your opponents to play cards like Fulminator Mage to attack your mana.
So Relic of Progenitus is going to go in the graveyard. Zhang has a habit. I think he likes to lay out his graveyard on the opposite side of his library. But when you're in the feature match, we kind of have standards that we hit so that it's easy to see at a glance, right, and you don't have to try to like figure it out. But Thoralf played the role of judge there and said, let's just move that over because the judges have been asking Zhang to do it anyway.
Of course.
So thank you.
Right. Does he have the follow-up here? Very important to go Inquisition into turn 2 threat. Scavenging Ooze, Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant, any of those cards. And yeah, he does have Tarmogoyf, so solid start here from Zhang. Disruption plus a threat here.
Yeah, and they go well together as well. The Relic of Progenitus is really annoying for the Tarmogoyf. It can keep it small for multiple turns and then kind of shrink it down in one big hit as well. And Thoralf really has shown his prowess with Relic of Progenitus. Seriously, he plays that thing like a fiddle. And seeing it in the graveyard already is a good thing for Zhang. And this Tarmogoyf, which he's just played passes the turn back, it's already got 3 power.
Look at this.
What did he find?
Sylvan Scrying off the top, so
and
he now has Tron. Turn 3 Tron because of the Chromatic Star.
And Zhang just has to look at this like, come on, dude.
Fulminator Mage? He needs a Fulminator Mage.
No, he found an Inquisition of Kozilek. That does not do it.
Man.
Thoralf and his Tron, man.
You know, I mean, that is what this deck does. But yeah, just finding that Sylvan Scrying, huge. I mean, had Zhang took the Chromatic Star instead of the Relic, I guess this wouldn't have happened right away.
You know what they say, never didn't have it, always had it, just had it. Easy.
And it looks like we have, and Zhang can only just do the one thing, just attack with the Tarmogoyf here. He does have a Maelstrom Pulse, no targets. And Thoralf, we saw the pair of Thragtusks in hand. He does have Tron. If he does have something like a Chromatic Sphere or a Chromatic Star, he can actually play Thragtusk next turn because he has 7 mana. If you cast a Chromatic Star, you go down to 6, but then you can funnel one of the colorless sources into green.
So here's Inquisition.
Can't take a Thragtusk.
No, it does have 2 choices, though.
I actually like taking the Chromatic Star here because that prevents Thoralf from running out Thragtusk next turn. You can't take the Urza land, so you can take the Sylvan Scrying, but Thoralf already has Tron here. By taking the Star, you at least delay Thragtusk from entering the battlefield for 1 turn.
Boy, Thragtusk is kind of like a mini worm coil, right, in this matchup where it has the same problems. It poses the same problems to Jund that worm coil does in the sense that it's just they have to slog through the whole thing. It's very difficult.
So yeah, this does delay Thoralf for a turn. He's down to 14, I think, right?
Poor Thoralf.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? He only has 7 mana on turn 3. He can't even spend it.
I'm sure all the viewers are feeling very bad for turn 3 natural Tron, followed by
multiple tusks minimum.
Turn 3 Tron again.
Yeah. One of them, you saw Zhang ask a question of a judge. One of the people in chat said, "Judge, my opponent has turn 3 Tron again." Like, what can I do?
And look at this. We have Worm Coil engine here.
So I talked about Thragtusk being kind of the mini Worm Coil engine, but why bother with that when you could just have the full on?
Just go with the original. It's so hard to deal with. If he just plays Worm Coil, like, Worm Coil engine is such a big problem. You kill the Worm Coil engine, you still have to deal with a pair of 3/3s, one of which has Death Touch, which means even that creature will be able to trade with any one of your giant Tarmogoyfs or Scavenging Oozes.
I have to give a lot of props to Thoralf here. He shows up to this tournament with a stock Tron list from 2016, and he's just smashing everybody with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there's one thing to be said about the Tron deck, it is extremely consistent. That's what it does. And if there is a good matchup for it, this is probably one of the best matchups, right? I mean, in Thoralf into the top 8, facing 3-0ing Jund in the quarters, and now potentially 3-1ing Jund following this up. So Zhang does have an out here. Fulminator Mage off the top here could mean that he would have enough pressure here to be able to stop Thoralf. Did he find Fulminator Mage?
He found Maelstrom Pulse to go with a land and a Bloodbraid Elf. So he has another shot at the Fulminator Mage here, Paul, if he goes for the Elf.
And we've seen Zhang with some timely Bloodbraid Elf Cascade triggers before, so let's see if he can do it again. Really, really needing Fulminator Mage. The Thoughtseize won't do it. Thoralf's hand is completely stacked. 2 Thragtusks and a Worm Coil engine.
Yeah, the window may be too small regardless, but this is definitely Zhang's best chance here. Remember, Severin also has the ability to crack that relic if he feels that he's under too much pressure. Like, let's just say that Zhang does hit the Fulminator Mage. That could prompt Thoralf Severin to crack that relic and shrink down the Tarmogoyf again, only taking, 3 or 4 damage. Here we go. Let's see what he hits off of this Bloodbraid Elf. Cascade always lends an air of an excitement, and it's another Tarmogoyf, which is really not what he wanted to see, just given the fact that that relic there can shrink things down. He'd have to kind of rebuild graveyards again.
Yeah, and he's just going to use the relic here, shrink both the Tarmogoyfs, and only take 3 damage. And yeah, I mean, Zhang's going to have to fight through Worm Coil engine and double Thragtusk.
I think he actually just drew a Walking Ballista as well, which he could use to mow down these Tarmogoyfs while the getting's good.
So he can make a 4/4 Walking Ballista and kill both of the Tarmogoyfs if he wants. Or he can just play out the Worm Coil engine. That's actually interesting. I think Ballista is just a play here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He likes it. Run out the Ballista for 4. Ping.
That's a good Ballista.
Ping.
Why are people playing this card? It's just a 2-mana 0/1.
It does need to ping the second one twice, and now the Walking Ballista has annihilated both Tarmogoyfs off the battlefield, and Zhiyang Zhang surely feels like this one is slipping away from him. The finals, look, he was even at a game apiece against Thoralf, but now the finals seem miles away as Thoralf Severin, now he's just Troning it up. That's what he's doing. He is down to 11. And Zhang's in the unenviable position of perhaps firing off a Thoughtseize here, and then is he going to Maelstrom Pulse a Walking Ballista?
Oh, I thought he took a Wormcoil Engine. It looks like he took a Walking Ballista instead. Okay.
No, I think he actually took the Relic.
The Relic. Okay, okay. I see,
Yeah,
I see.
and he drew the Ballista this turn.
Okay.
But double Thragtusk, perhaps good enough. And yeah, there it is. Maelstrom Pulse, you take
a
one.
Walking Ballista.
Yeah, so we're going to see the Thragtusk hit the battlefield next turn. Beyond that, you know, Thoralf is kind of on empty. Besides all the draw steps.
Zhang is literally on empty. He has no cards in hand.
Yeah, okay. Solid point, Paul. Good analysis. All right, let's see what happens here. Likely play is just the Thragtusk, unless Severin somehow finds something even better, which is certainly possible.
Thoralf now ahead enough to just start playing Magic with his hand face up here.
He's going to cycle through a Chromatic Sphere, and he's found a map and another mine. So we will see Thragtusk this turn.
Yeah, we're going to see a Thragtusk and also a Sylvan Scrying. Fetched the Blast Zone in the previous game, so likely going to find it again just to have additional answers for cards like Liliana or anything else. Also just needs to be mindful to maybe keep or preserve one search effect in case Zhang does top deck a Fulminator Mage. So can use this Sylvan Scrying to get a utility land, and then follow that up and just hold on to that expedition map in case of a potential Fulminator off the top.
And there we go. Thragtusk hits the battlefield. Thoralf's going to jump back up to 16 life and pass the turn. And Zhang is going to have a string of top decks like you've never seen to get back into this thing. You know, at least at face value, he could say trade off the elf and like bolt the beast, and then they would be at parity. But with the mana advantage that Severin has, each top deck is going to favor him so much more heavily than it will Zhang. That's the really hard part. And you know what? He doesn't have that answer yet either.
Yeah.
So let's see what he draws here.
He just wants lots of Bloodbraid Elves.
Yes.
All the Bloodbraid Elves.
That would be ideal. Let's see if he can rip one to start. Couldn't quite see.
Looked like a spell.
The funny part is that Thoralf's now up to 16 and kind of winning the race. So even if Zhang has an idea of trying to trade off, it could be difficult.
Is this a Bloodbraid Elf?
Oh, he did
wow.
hit a Bloodbraid Elf.
Okay.
Okay, the perfect
that's a
draw.
lightning bolt. I mean, you're probably going to shoot it off on the Thragtusk, right?
Hit the Moo Cow.
Yeah, and then now you can just start trying to race.
It's funny because Zhang knows what a steep hill this is to climb, but he also knows he has to do it.
He's going to block one, and 3 damage at a time.
So
Thoralf just needs to whiff for 4 or 5 straight turns.
That's Ancient Stirrings.
Oh, no.
Not good news here for Zhang. Is there anything big? Yes, it is.
There's
Karn,
the Karn.
liberated. By the way, that was the only option of the 5 cards, so Thoralf's going to be quite happy to see that.
And this is really big. Now Thoralf can sacrifice Expedition Map, get Sanctum of Ugin, play Sanctum of Ugin, will have exactly 7 mana to play Karn Liberated, trigger Sanctum of Ugin, and get something else.
Wow, somebody's played a little Tron in their day, huh?
Yeah. I don't like to speak openly about this, right? But I may or may not be a filthy Tron player.
You sit at home on Magic Online on some hidden account just playing Tron.
Let's just say some people may or may not have played against WotC Helmf and an Urza's Tower Expedition Map turn 1.
Paul feeds off of your complaints in the chat. That's what he lives for. Okay, there's Karn Liberated hitting the battlefield and moving Thoralf Severin surely into the finals here. A few more turns to go, although Zhang did hit exactly what we thought he needed with the Bloodbraid Elf last time and actually managed to put himself at least temporarily ahead on board.
Yeah, and now even if a Fulminator Mage hits, I mean, Thoralf can just start hard casting the Wormcoil Engine with just normal lands.
Zhang has to just run out everything that he draws, or else he's going to lose it to Karn potentially anyway.
Might even consider sacrificing this land here to find potentially a Lightning Bolt just to get Karn off the battlefield.
That would be the cleanest way, wouldn't it? Wonder what he drew for the turn. A Goyf.
Yep, and That's what he has to do. You simply just cannot let Karn stay on the battlefield, and I think this is going to lock it up. Sacrifice the land here. Found a Wren in 6, but that is not going to get it done. Maybe getting a land back here.
Could get the peatland back.
Yeah.
Represents another card. Play his land for the turn. Wormcoil Engine in hand for Thoralf Severin on the eve of a Mythic Championship final. He's going to play that after plussing Karn, passing the turn back. Is this it?
I mean, we're looking at Wormcoil Engine and a Karn Liberated on 7.
Ugh.
Yep.
And that's going to do it. Thoralf Severin defeats Zhiyang Zhang and ends his fantastic run here in Barcelona. And Thoralf is into the finals. So fantastic stuff. We have mono green Tron in the hands of Thoralf Severin in the finals. I would not have predicted that coming in. And on the other side of the bracket here, we've got Alvaro Fernandez Torres from Spain on hardened scales facing off against Sean Gifford on Eldrazi Tron.
We might see a Tron versus Tron final potentially.
That's right. I wonder if those cards are good. Yeah, so 3-1 now for Thoralf Severin. He gets the job done. He's the one that advances to the finals for his chance at that top prize and all the glory up top as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll be back over at the news desk to help get you set up for our last semifinal. Don't go anywhere.